Did you know that in the US, about 9.7% of people aged 12 or older, equivalent to nearly 28 million individuals, meet criteria for alcohol use disorder, AUD, every year? That's not a small number. And here's the heartbreaking truth. Despite this massive group, in 2023, only around 7.9% of those got any form of treatment for their drinking. They are in denial. What that tells us, AUD isn't a rare outlier. It's widespread and often completely hidden. So if someone you love is struggling in secret, you are not imagining this pain or confusion, and this reality deserves to be seen, acknowledged, and healed. This topic is deeply personal for me because I have firsthand experience with it growing up. Many people who struggle with addiction have a history of trauma or childhood adversity. My dad was one of them. His trauma was war. He was only 5 years old when the Battle of Okinawa reached the island where he lived. In just a few months, 1/10 of the entire civilian population was gone. His father died as a soldier and everything changed overnight. My grandmother tried to protect him the best she could, but his mother disappeared. And every day his grandmother would say, "Maybe she'll come back today. If you behave, maybe tomorrow." So he waited by the window every day. Hours turned into days and days turned into years. And when you're a little kid waiting for a parent who never returns, that kind of heartbreak doesn't just go away. It lives inside you. Eventually, the waiting became too painful, and the only thing left to do was numb it. Not because he was weak, but because that's what kids learn when no one helps them heal. But that pain didn't just disappear. It turned into so many things. He became promiscuous, suicidal, physically and emotionally abusive. There were so many moments when I wished my mom had left him, but she stayed. Today, he can't remember very much at all. When he's not at daycare, he spends his day standing in the middle of my mother's vegetable garden, just staring into the air or down at the dirt. A whole life shaped by what he survived and what he never got to heal. Blackouts and memory gaps are one of the most confusing and painful parts of addiction. Heavy drinking doesn't just lower inhibition, it can actually shut down the brain's ability to form memories. Research shows that around 50% of drinkers experience an alcohol-induced blackout at some point. That means they may genuinely not remember parts or even all of what happened. And blackouts aren't just "I did something stupid." They often involve shouting matches, impulsive choices, broken promises, emotional abuse, or behavior that leaves loved ones scared and hurt the next day. For some, repeated heavy drinking can even lead to long-term brain damage and serious memory disorders like Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome. Here's the part that matters. Just because they don't remember the harm doesn't mean it didn't happen. The fear, the confusion, the betrayal, those memories live in you, and your experience is real. Here's the hard truth. Even deep love, loyalty, and hope rarely overcome addiction. Because AUD isn't just a bad habit or a lack of discipline, it's a disease that changes the brain. It affects the reward system, decision-making, memory, and impulse control. It changes how a person thinks, feels, and responds. Love can support, hope can encourage, but neither treats alcoholism. Only recognition, willingness, and professional intervention can create real change. And as we talked about earlier, more than 90% of people with AUD never receive treatment in a given year. Not because they don't deserve help, but because they don't acknowledge they need it. They minimize the consequences or truly believe they can stop any time. So if your loved one hasn't admitted there's a problem, it isn't because you failed them. It's because denial is still winning. And until that changes, there may be no real path forward yet. When alcohol becomes the main coping strategy for pain, trauma, loneliness, or stress, the damage rarely stays inside the bottle. It spills into relationships and families. Research shows that people with untreated AUD often continue drinking even when it causes serious consequences. Lost jobs, broken relationships, decline in health, legal trouble, and isolation. And the impact on family members is profound. In homes where there is parental substance use, children are significantly more likely to experience emotional or physical abuse, neglect, unpredictable routines, or basic needs going unmet. The entire household starts walking on eggshells. You never know what version of the person you'll get, warm or hostile, calm or explosive, present or completely checked out. Alcohol can change the entire climate of a home. It brings mood swings, sudden anger, emotional distance, impulsive decisions, and tension that fills every room. It turns love into fear, communication into arguments, and trust into survival mode. When AUD goes untreated, it isn't just self-destruction. It becomes a storm that pulls everyone into the chaos. Partners become caretakers, children become silencers, families start adjusting around the drinking just to keep the pace. The forgotten promise. Marissa's husband, John, promised that this time would be different. He said he would only have a few drinks and then go to bed. Instead, he came home 4 hours later, slurring, angry, demanding, and then passed out on the couch. In the morning, he looked confused. He said, "I don't remember anything," as if that erased what happened. But Marissa does. She remembers sitting up with fear in her chest, cleaning up broken things, answering worried calls, and holding the emotional aftermath alone. The emotional roller coaster. Carlos is a father of 2. On sober days, he's warm, playful, and loving. He helps with homework, cooks dinner, and makes his kids laugh. But on drinking nights, it's like someone flips a switch. He becomes harsh, irritable, and unpredictable. He yells over small things, storms away from conversations, or shuts down completely. The kids learn to read every movement and tone of voice, trying to guess what mood he's in. They tiptoe through the house like explosions might happen at any moment. Carlos dismisses it the next day with, "I was drunk, I can't control it." He treats it like it's not his responsibility. But the truth is, the house has already changed. The warmth is gone. The kids stop asking questions. His partner stops sharing feelings. It stops feeling like a home and becomes a place where everyone is managing fear rather than feeling safe or loved. When you live with someone who drinks like this, who denies, lies, blacks out, hurts you, then dismisses or forgets, you don't just deal with the drinking. You deal with the confusion it creates inside you. You start questioning your own memory and emotions. You start wondering, am I overreacting? Maybe it wasn't that bad. They don't remember. Maybe I'm the one who's wrong. That's the emotional abuse of addiction. The trauma isn't always physical or loud. Sometimes it's the silence, the neglect, the gaslighting, the broken promises, and the denial. It's psychological damage that leaves you doubting your instincts and your worth. And the longer it continues, the more you begin to shrink mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, just to survive the chaos. You become smaller and quieter, trying not to trigger the storm. And that's when you realize the addiction isn't only happening to them, it's happening to you too. What you need to know: denial, minimization, blackouts, these aren't rare quirks or one-time mistakes. They are common and predictable patterns in alcohol addiction, and they happen in millions of households across the world. You are not the only one facing this, and you are not the only one questioning your reality. AUD affects so many families that almost everyone knows someone who struggles with it. And here's what matters: toxic behavior while drinking isn't just a bad night or they didn't mean it. When someone drinks heavily and often, the behavior can become chronic. It can become emotional abuse. It can damage trust, the relationship, and the emotional safety of everyone in the home, especially children. So if you feel scared, confused, or exhausted by the drinking, I want you to know this: you are not being dramatic. You're not imagining it, and your pain is real. What you can do: if you're loving someone with AUD and carrying the pain, the confusion, and the fear, you are not powerless. There are steps you can take that protect your heart and honor your mental health. First, educate yourself. Learn the truth about AUD, the denial, the blackouts, the memory loss, and the brain changes that addiction causes. Clarity is power. The more you understand, the less you blame yourself. Second, protect your emotional and physical safety. If promises are constantly broken, if you're being lied to, neglected, or threatened, or if their drinking puts you in harm's way, boundaries are not selfish, they are essential. You don't have to sacrifice your well-being to save someone else. You can choose honesty, you can choose distance, you can choose support, but not at the cost of your peace. And every boundary you set is a step toward healing, whether they get help or not. Encourage them, but don't carry the responsibility for their healing. You can invite them to get help, whether that's therapy, support groups, or medical treatment, but you cannot force the transformation. You can offer a hand, but you cannot walk the path for them. And while you're hoping for their recovery, don't forget your own. Addiction doesn't just affect the person drinking, it affects the entire system around them. It is okay to seek your own support, whether that's talking with a therapist, leaning on friends or family, or joining a support group. You deserve the same care and healing you wish for them. And here's another truth that's hard to speak. Some people may never change, or at least not on the timeline you pray for. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is love from a distance, emotionally or physically. Setting boundaries isn't abandonment, it's self-protection. And it might be the one thing that saves your peace. Thank you for being here, for your courage, your honesty, and the love you continue to hold, even in pain. I'm Nori, and this is my AI twin sister, Nora, holding space for you in the confusion, the heartbreak, the anger, and the hope for something better. Healing doesn't start with the other person changing. Healing starts with you seeing the truth clearly. If this video brought you clarity, strength, or helped you feel less alone, please like, share, and subscribe. And tell us in the comments, has someone you love ever denied their drinking, even when it was hurting you? Are you learning to protect your heart today? Remember, beautiful soul, you can love someone deeply and still choose boundaries, truth, and peace. You deserve safety, you deserve support, and you deserve healing, always.